Hi, welcome back and thanks for watching. So in the last video, we had kind of taken this pretty short, review example of a piece that was in 4/4 that's 2 measures long. And we kind of said, well, what happens when we just don't play a note? When we, leave leave a note out and we're not attacking anything, we're not holding a note on a certain beat. There's just silence on a beat, and we found out, or I guess I told you that was the concept of resting. That we would rest, and that we can have rests of all, I guess, different durations. So in that example, I guess in the first example, we took out this beat 2, and we said that we would be resting for the amount of space of a quarter note. And in this kind of second incarnation of this example, we took out this half note at the end. So we said we would be resting, and the rest would equal the amount of space of a half note. And now what I want to do is, maybe you remember at the beginning of the playlist. I don't know if you might not be going through this playlist in complete sequential order. You might be kind of skipping around, I guess, and hitting on the topics that you need. But at the beginning of the playlist, I had this table that I drew that I said it was just our notes. It was the 3 most basic notes, and these are the notes that we've used so far in the playlist. So they've just been quarter note, and I'll actually write this down right now. So we've had quarter notes, we've had half notes, and we've had whole notes so far. And now I'm going to expand this table to be notes and their equivalent rests. Because if we have a rest that's the same amount, we can have a rest notation that is the same amount of time occupied by each of these types of notes. So I'll just kind of label these. This is the quarter note, so I'll write in, this is the quarter note, this is the half note, and then this is the whole note there. And their equivalent rests look as follows. The quarter rest is kind of tricky to draw, but the way I always think about drawing it is I always think about just really drawing kind of a jagged 3. So like that. That is kind of a good approximation of what a quarter rest looks like. And I always think about drawing a jagged 3. Sometimes I'll put this little hat on top of the 3. Some engravers use that. I don't think the Sibelius engraving font uses that hat on top of the 3. But a quarter rest just kind of looks like a squiggly line, like that. It looks like a jagged, squiggly line. And actually, let me pull up real quick an example. I'm sure there's got to be one in. Actually, no, I'm sure I've got one in Clifford Brown's stuff. Sandu. Yeah, we actually start the piece out with a quarter rest. There we go. So yeah, the Sibelius graver, you can see this just kind of looks like a pretty jagged 3. But that's what a quarter rest looks like. That's that's it pretty much. It's a jagged 3. So anyway, that's that. Now for a half rest. I might have a little bit more trouble finding exactly what a half rest, or finding an example of a half rest. And half rests are kind of tricky to draw without a 5-line staff. But here, I'll give you kind of how I'm going to draw them on a 5-line staff. Anyway, let me show you. So on a 5-line staff, give you my 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And the way you think about drawing a half rest is you think about taking this third line right here, and you say, well, we're going to try to make a hat, or really it's going to, this example, it might look a bit more like a sombrero, but we're going to make a hat out of that third line. We're going to put a little bump right there. And it's kind of it's a silly little way to remember that is a half rest. I know whenever I have to write out music by hand, I have to remember how to draw a half rest. I always say, oh, I have to draw a hat rest, a HAT rest. But that works. And as you can see, it kind of looks like a hat, and that's what a half rest would look like. For our examples, since we're not yet dealing with drawing music on this 5-line staff, the way I'm going to draw a half rest in our examples is I'm just going to draw a line and this bump on top of the line, like that. So that'll be how I draw a half rest. So it'll just kind of look like a hat like that, I guess. But most of you are going to be reading music, or I imagine that most people that'll be watching these videos will be reading music on a 5-line staff. And the way music looks on a 5-hand staff or a 5-line staff when you are writing when you're reading rests, this is what it'll look like. You take the third line and you make a hat out of the third line, and then this is what I'll be writing it for most of our rhythmic examples on this playlist. So anyway, that is the half rest. And now on to the whole rest. So again, this rest, it's important to see what it looks like on a 5-line staff. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's our 5-line staff. And a whole rest, the way you think about this, and here's kind of the trick to remembering what a whole rest looks like, is I always kind of imagine that, here, so I'll do this in yellow. I always kind of imagine that there's a little guy up here. Hopefully you can see this. I'm not drawing too small, but there's a guy up there, and he's walking this way, and he falls into a hole that's below that 4th line. So that's kind of what a little way that I remember where to draw a whole rest. So a whole rest looks like you just take this 4th line of music, or this fourth line on the staff, and you draw a little hole below that 4th line. And this is kind of the way I think about it. There's a guy walking along that 4th line. He'll fall into the hole. So anyway, hope that helps you. Hope that helps you remember what a whole rest will look like. The way I'm going to draw this for our rhythmic examples, it's going to look a little similar to this half rest, except it's going to be, I'll probably write our half rest like in the middle of the line of music, and I'm intentionally writing this a little bit above, hopefully you can see that I'm writing this a little bit above where I've written the half rest, because I'll write a whole rest a little bit above where I write everything else in music, in our rhythmic examples, and then I'm just going to draw a hole like that below the music. And you will see this in rhythmic examples. A lot of the time in rhythmic examples, and maybe I should get into the habit of doing this, but if you're a percussionist, if you play percussion and you've got 4/4, and everyone else is reading on 5 lines, and you just might be reading on 1 line like that, and then it'll be divided up into bar lines. And what a whole rest will look like in this situation is you'll just have a hole on that 1 line, and then that'll be your rest for that measure. So anyway, I'm out of time, but hopefully you found this useful, and in the next few videos we'll start doing some examples. Thanks for watching.